what I want for Muslims after the Islamic Republic is not just the ability to be Muslim. Okay. I am a free speech advocate, and I think that they should have the freedom to invite people to Islam. They should have that freedom, right? And not only that, as an Iranian citizen, they should expect safety and security from our future government, and they should be treated like every other citizen. And any other citizen, if anybody wants to come harm them or mistreat them or threaten them because they're Muslim, it is the responsibility of our state to come give them full protection. And me, as an anti as somebody who's anti-Islam but also is a free speech advocate, I expect my state to protect Muslims against harm for being Muslims, even though I'm extremely anti-Islamic. So I say, how does that sound? Do you think that's fair? They say, like, oh, yeah, that sounds great. That sounds fair. So for first, by the way, this is a trap. Okay. I get them on board that this is a good thing. Okay. So once they accept that this is a good thing, because I don't tell them what I want from my state before I tell them this, because they have to first admit that this is a good situation for them to be in, right? Say like, so secularism, there is no Islamic government, there is no mosque being there, there's no religious propaganda being spread by the government, but you get to be a Muslim, you get to teach Islam, you get to advocate Islam, you get to raise your own money, build your own mosque, whatever you want, pray, fast, whatever you want to do as a Muslim. Nobody should harm you. And you can even have your Ashura ceremonies if you want, as long as you keep the noise down and you don't get noise complaints. You could even do that, okay? And that sounds fair. Is it fair? Fair. Okay. There are many people who say, are Muslim Iranians who are against the regime. They say, like, hey, in the future of Iran, a free Iran, everybody should keep their religion into their own private house and not talk about their religion in the public sphere. And they're Muslim and they're saying this. I'm like saying, hey, look, as an anti Islamic person, I'm going further than them. They say, keep Islam into your own house. I'm saying, no, you should be able to come into the park and talk about Islam, hand out power. The Muslims who are anti-Islamic Republic, they're saying after we free Iran, we will keep Islam into our home. Me as a free speech advocate, I'm saying you should be able to be free to come out and advocate for Islam in the park and hand out pamphlets to people to bring them back to Islam. I think you should be able to do that. And then here's the trap. They're like, okay, if you are free to advocate for Islam, then do you agree that it's only fair that I get to advocate against Islam? Right? And when I get to this part, they usually say yes. Okay. And especially given that I gave them all of those privileges and rights, right? So you first come and say, you give them the good parts. You tell them that they will be even more secure. They will be even more secure under a secular Iran. Muslims will be protected even more than under the Islamic Republic. And they will be able to do all of the Islamic things that they want, whatever Islamic thing they want. So you give them all the good parts, and the only thing you ask for in return is that if you can advocate for Islam, it's only fair for me to speak against it. So you get them, and then you're gonna get into a debate because they know that I'm also in favor of being able to insult and ridicule Islam. But that's the next discussion. I'm not gonna tell you how I get them on board with that as well, which is very challenging. But I have been successful with that with some Muslims to get them even on board with, okay, it should be free to insult Islam. It's very challenging, but I just wanted to give you the first step on how I get them on board in being able to speak against Islam in the future of Iran. That's if you're interested, I could tell you how I go with the insulting and ridiculing as well.
I'm very interested, but I wanted to give the floor to some other people. And also, Alex had a quick comment about this.
I guess now it's time to
Okay.
talk.
Yeah, go
Yeah,
ahead, Alex.
Tusi actually talked about this, and he calls this form of Islam Islamism, which is basically an extreme form of.
There is no form of Islam. Islam and Islamism are the same thing.
Or one is more radical than another. One is like more
No,
strict.
no, that's not true. Islam and Islamism are the same thing. There is no difference between Islam and Islam. There is a difference between a Muslim and an Islamist, okay? Because some Muslims want Islam in politics and some of them don't. But Islam as a religion is completely political to its core. It is within Islam is political from its DNA. So there is no difference between Islam and Islamism. When it comes
Yeah.
to individuals, there is a difference between a Muslim and an Islamist. But when it comes to the religion itself, there is no difference because Islam is purely political.
And I would bet you they would be unwilling to rewrite their holy book, Quran, to fix this part.
I mean, if you're willing to rewrite the Quran, then you're not a Muslim anymore.
Yeah, so they're not going to
If
be
you come
willing
out
to
and
do that.
say that I want to rewrite the Quran, immediately you immediately have left Islam.
Yep. I think belief in the perfection of the Quran to Islam is like a belief in Jesus being the Son of God to Christianity. It's just you can't do that.
Yeah, Danny, actually, something a point that a lot of people don't understand. A lot of people think Allah is like Jesus, and the Quran is like the Bible. It's actually the other way around. Okay, so in Islam, the equivalent to Jesus is the Quran, not Allah, and the equivalent to Allah is the Bible. But I will have another explanation regarding that one day.
Jeffrey, why don't you go ahead and chime in on this, please?
Yeah, just to elaborate again on Armin's point, it's very apt. There's a huge difference between Islam, the belief system, and all members of the Alman breed, the global community that identifies as being Muslim. Now, that being said, so people are like, well, what if you interpret things differently? Other than a very brief time period during the Mutazilite era, applying reason or I'm always mispronounce it Yahad, is considered a primary heretical act. If you modify or try to change the Quran prior to the 9th century or after the 9th century, it qualifies you for death in Islamic jurisprudence, right? In Sharia law, how Islam doctrinally applies its belief system. And like the idea, it's amazing you brought that up, Armin. Like some people, predominantly in the West, right, due to institutional capture of our universities being leftist only clubs and leftist bullshit, like it's like this moral equivalency. Well, Muhammad is the same as Yahshua Mashiach, and the Quran is the same as the Bible. No, they're not. No, they're not. Not doctrinally, not historically, not at all. Well, but there's no but. There's no but, right? So a couple of myths, right? Oh, there is peaceful surahs in the Quran. That must mean Islam is peaceful. First off, the translation, that's a mistranslation. That's not peace surah. Read the Meccan surahs. That's word surah, not the same as peace. Even if there were peace surahs in the Quran, because Islam doctrine, how Islam doctrinally categorizes the Quran and or applies said like surahs via the law of abrogation based on the idea of progressive revelation, meaning Muhammad, even if he existed, because there's no third party corroboratory evidence, let's say like the existence of Yahshua Mashiach via Roman like documents, he was going up to a cave and having delusions of grandeur and thought he was giving all this amazing wisdom with the ultimate wisdom at the end, meaning that all of the surahs that are temporally located, meaning in time in the Quran, abrogate, replace, and nullify the ones that came before it, because the sword or war verses, the Medinan surahs, are temporally located later on in the Quran. So even if there were peace surahs, which there isn't, it doesn't make any difference. That being said, Western leftists that pushed all this moral equivalency, very much from Soviet active measures. This is the same stupid shit that leftist freaks pushed during the Red-Black Alliance to sit there and delegitimize the Shah and then set it up so that those crazies could take down the Shah. That's the same stupid shit. It's the same stupid shit that's spewed by members of the Red-Green Alliance today. This is like leftists who try to sit there and do all this mental gymnastics, right? Like, oh, well, but Islam's like, they're queers for Palestine. How can you possibly be queers for Hamas? They want you all dead. I mean, outside of it's in a luxury belief because you live in the West and are not directly like going to directly suffer that racial, cultural, national, or personal masochistic belief system, right? I mean, how do you logically square that circle? Right? How do they do it? They sit there and redefine Islam in a manner that Islam itself says you cannot do. Other than the ninth century, under the Mutazilite reign, which was like disproportionately Greeks and Persians that played a role in that very brief time period where reason could even be superficially applied to the Quran. Like it's the same shit that I hear when it comes to Mandela, right? Like there's no question the apartheid government in South Africa was shitty, absolutely ruthless fuckers, right? They did horrible shit, and so, and it's true, Mandela fought against the apartheid regime. That's true. That doesn't make Mandela de facto good. I mean, Mandela was an overt asset for the KGB and did despicable shit all throughout the African peninsula or the continent of Africa. Just look up Operation Mayibuye and all the terrorist attacks like the Church Street bombing and all the rest of it that disproportionately killed, I'm going somewhere with this, disproportionately killed black women and children. Well, what do you hear the left say? Oh, Mandela, he was like South Africa's like Martin Luther King. No, not even close. That bullshit moral equivalence. Oh my God. I'm sorry, Armin. I get just as probably as angry as you do with this nonsense. I mean, doesn't it drive you ape shit when these people try to push that stuff? Well, it depends on how you interpret the Quran. The Islam says you can't do that. So, I mean, where do you go from there? It's that kind of intellectual dishonesty and lack of moral clarity that erodes policy that needs to be implemented so we can minimize the absolute abuse and abject horror that is visited upon any number of vulnerable populations by Islamic fundamentalist entities, whether they're the mullah regime or terrorists or whatever. And so the reason I get upset is because that lack of moral clarity is measured in people's lives. And I don't know how the hell you don't flip out, Armin. I don't know how you do it, dude. Is it a big bag of weed or you drinking every day? I don't know what it is. I mean, you like all this shit going on in Iran, and somehow you like still. I told my wife I call you like Persian Elmo, right? Because I just want to tickle you. I just anyway. I'm gonna stop now.
Brave.
All right. No, I mean I've
think you
debated.
needed that. I think you really needed that.
Yeah, yeah, you need to get that out of your system. Yeah. I mean, I debated Muslims for more than a decade now, and I've heard the most, you won't believe the types of arguments I've heard. I've debated many, many mullahs, many so called philosophers of Islamic studies. So, honestly, like when you guys hear some ridiculous nonsense, it's nothing compared to what, like, yeah, I mean, I'm actually fascinated by them, by the Islamic, by the pro-Islamic arguments. And the way I don't get angry anymore is, I mean, when I get angry is because I want to get angry, because I feel like I enjoy sometimes like getting angry, so it's completely under my control when I want to get angry, and I get angry. But when I don't get angry, because strategically it doesn't make sense to get angry because you're disarming somebody by calmly listening to them, I treat them like a, I don't know, like a virus that I'm studying or something. Like I don't get, like I think like a scientist who is basically treating, I don't know, cancer is not going to lose his shit like looking at a tumor and like start swearing at it, right? I think they're actually interested in the subject that they're studying. So I look at them as the subject of study, and the way that they think, instead of me getting angry with it, I feel like I'm studying something. I'm trying to understand how the pro-Islamic arguments evolve and what their strategies are, and I basically look at it as an observer. And when I'm studying it, I get less angry from it. That's the way I try to think about it.
A lot
I
of
do
us been
think
doing
it
it for years as well. So like, I don't know how about you, Armin, but at the start, because I've been getting like death threats and stuff from Muslims since I was like 12. But at the start, I would get really angry, and sometimes I would just feel despair and just go on a crash out. And we all have crash outs sometimes, but it's like with time and
Yeah.
breathing and taking breaks whenever you can. And again,
I
looking for, like Armin said, to taking like a stand from the outside as an observer, that helps.
Yes, I usually get more angry with people that need to know better. Honestly, I shouldn't say this, but when somebody says I'm a Muslim, I feel like, oh, you're special. Like I kind of like feel like you're a special person, so I should be less angry with you, because you're kind of like a mental handicap or something. So I treat you like I basically, if somebody is like usually on the right side of things and is on our side and has good position, and they all of a sudden have a shit take, they're usually like, what the fuck? But if you're a Muslim, for example, and you have shit takes, I'm like, well, I mean, you're a Muslim. Like, okay, like,
I
like, what
had
should
a
I tell you?
conversation with someone that went great for 2 hours, and then started, and then like it was like so logical and nice, and then it's like on this side, yeah, but there's the black magic Jewish cult that controls the world.
By the way, guys, like one debate that I just recently had on the Persian side was like, if you want to talk about frustrating arguments, I was debating. It was recorded and we just released it on our Persian channel. I was debating somebody that came up and was defending the Islamic Republic regarding the killing, more 40,000 and more Iranian people, and he was basically trying to argue why that was justified, why every state has the right to defend itself when they're trying to topple it. And I was arguing that. So if you think, right? So, and by the way, it went very well in my favor. Like I completely destroyed him, but he was really frustrated with me. But yeah, this is what I go through. imagine, imagine, imagine after experiencing the worst strategy in the history of your country, having to debate somebody who's trying to justify it, like having to debating that person for an hour straight, and yeah,
I'm sure most of us
tolerating
can.
his nonsense.
Yeah, we don't have to imagine it. We know it very well. Finally, on the list, we have Cat Lady.
Yes, finally. So actually, there is like this viral video right now of this YouTuber Bailey something. I don't know. She's like crying, and like she's has like what the situation in America is so bad right now, and she has some points, I guess. Some others that I don't agree on, whatever. But she says, "What are we going to do? What are we going to do?" and cries, and it's very viral right now. And was going through the comments, and people say, "Oh yeah, let's unite together to fight the Jews." And I'm like, good luck. You will settle, your life is going to be better. It's like, even if someone says, as an Armenian, and you are also Armenian, we should together fight against Zionists. What can I say? People are hopeless.
Good luck, have fun. Like,
Yeah, yeah, bright future. Also, I had a question, Armin, but maybe it's too late now. I wanted to ask you, why are you not a monarchist?
Okay. Oh, that's a good question. Let me respond to Goldie. She asked me something. Let me just say, in what level? That's a good question. Okay, so, all right. Why am I not a monarchist? Okay, so, by the way, Steph also raised her hand, so I think like let's after that go to Steph.
Sorry.
So there is, when it comes to being a monarchist or not being a monarchist, there's two different areas, right? So one, philosophically, like on paper, in theory, what system do you think works better? And then another question is in practice, in the reality that you're dealing with right now, given the environment that you're in now, what do you think works best, right? So let me tell you, this is a little bit strategic from my perspective, right? When we have the referendum, I will vote for monarchy, right? Not because philosophically I'm in favor of monarchy, but because given the conditions that we are in Iran right now, all the Republicans, all the people, well, not all the people, all the people who are anti-Iran, all the MEK people, the Marxists, the reformers, the Mossadegis, they have picked up the Republican flag, right? So I don't, even though I'm a Republican, I don't want to join their side. There are some Republicans who support Princess of Pahlavi, who are proper patriots, who don't support all of those shit ideas. But given how all of the shit ideas that has destroyed our country has grouped under the Republican flag, there is no saving that branding. You know what I mean? So it's, I, imagine if you're a women rights activist that refuses to call herself a feminist because of all the woke nonsense that you're like, okay,
I
you know
just
what,
want to
I'm not
make
going to call
sure
myself
that you know
something
that
like.
it's like not yet the answer to my question, right? You get to that?
I'm moving towards it, right? So I'm just telling you strategically, I'm going to vote monarchist, even though I'm not a monarchist, because I think we need to vote for monarchism to keep all of these people out, right? On So I'm voting strategically based on the reality on the ground, right? On paper, individually, I don't see, okay, and like in the worlds of theory, in a vacuum, I don't see a necessity for a king, right? But somebody might say, Armin, well, okay, but you don't live on paper. In the real world, you're going to vote for monarchy, so you are technically a monarchist, right? So there's the reason, and here's where it comes strategic. So technically, I could call myself a monarchist because I'm going to vote for monarchy, or I could call myself a Republican because, in the vacuum, on theory and paper, I don't see the necessity for having a king, and I think that a republic without a monarch could work as effectively in paper. Not given the conditions that we're dealing with in Iran right now, I think a monarchy would work better, given that reason that I give you and a couple other reasons. But here's how I'm being a bit sneaky, okay? I've been not a monarchist for a very long time, and I started supporting Princess of Pahlavi, right? And some people close to Princess of Pahlavi's team told me that Princess of Pahlavi needs, not like, it is good to have non-monarchist supporters of Princess of Pahlavi, right? So me saying, deciding that to categorize myself as a monarchist would just add to the already gazillion monarchists who support Princess of Pahlavi, right? What we need to advertise is the broader base that Princess of Pahlavi has when it comes to supporters beyond monarchists, right? So given that I philosophically could categorize myself as a Republican and a monarchist, it makes sense that I go with that definition, and I keep presenting myself and as a non-monarchist who is a supporter of Princess of Pahlavi, so my platform could be used as a way to demonstrate the broader base of support that Princess of Pahlavi has.
I I want to know specific. I know all of that, and I think it's smart. It also can give like permission and show like, yeah, not all of whoever supports the Shah is like super like wants a king and everything. But my question is, why do you, in the basic idea, why do you think that monarchy is not good? Because you said it somewhat because you think it will be effective without a king, right? That's a good answer.
Yeah. So for me, okay. So let me tell you, I think that there's, when it comes to our future government, there's the structure of the government, and then there's the content of the government. Okay, so I think the values of the government are more important than when it comes to the structure. The main priority is for it to be represent the sovereignty belonging to the people. So
In
let me
Canada and the
explain this.
UK?
So a
Because doesn't that
constitutional
seem like
monarchy.
what you guys want?
Let me, Steph, Steph, like I have
No, I
no
know,
idea
I
what you're
know, I
asking,
know.
and all you're doing is basically making me lose my train of thought. So
Right. No,
that's okay.
no, I'm not
Yeah.
trying to. I'm just trying to
Yeah.
understand the
So you could do that
don't
when
you want a
you're right.
democracy that could be a like whatever you have in Canada?
Where was I? Okay, so yeah, love you too, Steph. Okay, so technically, a constitutional monarchy is a republic. Okay. So when the Iranian people are saying a republic or a constitutional monarchy, a more accurate description of these two choices would be a republic with a monarch and a republic without a monarch. Okay. Because as long as the power comes from the people and sovereignty belongs to the people, then you're a republic. So in a constitutional monarchy, you have prime minister, you have voting, you have a parliament, you have a constitution, you have a limited powered monarch. All of these are signs of you being a republic. So a constitutional monarchy is definitely a republic, but a republic with a monarch. So to me, the highest priority is to have a republic, whether in a constitutional monarchy format or a republic without a monarch. That is secondary, not as important. The more important part is the content, which is muhtava, which is the fact that we're secular, the fact that we're democratic, the fact that our border integrity is being protected, and the fact that we have equal individual rights before the law. If and we could achieve all of these with both models. I think we could achieve both of all of these with both models, right? So to me, on paper, given that they're both achievable, given that I'm a limited government person, I would be in favor of not adding something that is not necessary. So if both of these models achieve all of these, and in paper a monarch is not needed, so philosophically, why add a monarch where all of these could be achieved with both models? However, again, in reality, on the ground in Iran, I think we do need a monarch to protect us from all of those, ideas that are under the Republican flag, right? But in theory, on a piece of paper in a vacuum, if everything was equal, preferably having less government institutions, like monarch. The king is not just a king. A king comes with an entire monarchy branch of the government. Having less government institutions, I'm in favor of that because I'm a limited government kind of guy. But obviously, in Iran, I do think we need a monarch for many different reasons. But on paper and on theory, I prefer less. Less is more. Okay. Good
Javid,
questions, by the way, Cat Lady.
yeah, I was wondering, and I think it's very smart. Actually, very. I would do it the same. I think in your place, it's like if you have something that unites all of you, stick to it. You'll
Yes.
work it out later. Like
Amazing.
whoever now that says against the Shah, it's so fragile. You found something that unites everybody. Now you want to be against the Shah? You're not serious. I agree with that completely. Javid Shah.
Javid Shah, I'm Israel Chai.
Yeah.
That was really good. I really enjoyed that. So who's on the list? I think Steph is on the list, right? Okay. Then you don't have anything to say.
Armin, how long do we have
Okay.
you for?
I could be here for another 20 minutes.
Okay, in that case.
Yeah. Okay,
Danny, before you go, if that's okay, I'm just
God.
going to make a quick comment that I'm going to head out. But thank you, Armin, for your time with us today. We appreciate it. And Danny, you know the drill. I will see you guys tomorrow.
BT, I'm really, when I come here, I really like to also hear your opinions or your questions as well. Like, I really enjoy listening to you as well. So if you ever have any points or questions, let me know.
Of course, Armin, yes, but I'm always here. And so I like to give everyone an opportunity. But yeah, maybe I'll set a little calendar reminder to ask you impossible questions once a week. That way it can satisfy you.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay,
Sounds
thanks
good.
everybody. Have a good one.
Bye, BT.
Yes, so I guess I wanted to ask about your second step when you talk to Iranian Muslims, how you get to talking about the pedophile warlord, peace be upon him.
So, how do I talk to Muslims regarding why we should have the right to insult Islam?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So when I get so guys, like for people who don't have context, we're talking about not the pro-Islamic Republic Muslims in Iran. We're talking about the Islam Muslims who are a lot more mellow, who are anti-Islamic Republic, who believe in secularism, who don't want religion and government, who are fighting alongside us anti-Islamic people against Islamic Republic. So many of these Muslims have already been convinced that in the future of Iran, criticizing Islam should be free. But many of them do not agree that insulting Islam should be allowed, should be legal, right? In the future of Iran, right? So there's a couple of points that we could make here. By the way, convincing this part is a more challenging thing to do, right? There's a couple of points here. First, we tell them that this is a free speech thing. Like I tell them that because usually tell me like, Armin, if you have any good points against Islam, then argue it. Why do you have to insult Islam, right? My my first argument is usually regarding the fact that giving the government the ability to control speech is too much, giving too much power to the government, right? And usually it starts with things that people agree that should be limited, and then that's basically once you allow that, once the government gets their foot in the door, they will eventually open it wide open, and it will get to places where then once you allow them to come for that speech, then you don't know how far that's going to go. So that's my main point. And I'm saying, like, when a lot of the allowing insulting Islam is more about not letting the government drawing red lines where it comes to what speech is allowed, more than more than convincing people out of Islam. It's more of a free speech thing rather than convincing Muslims out of Islam thing, right? If you tell us that we can't say this, then it will become more important to say it so that the government doesn't have the ability to limit speech. That's one point. Another point is that the insulting of Islam is the only reason why it's now normal to you as a Muslim for me to criticize Islam. Because it was you're saying that, oh, we should allow, you as a Muslim are telling me that, oh, we should allow people to criticize Islam respectfully but not insult Islam. You would never say this. Like, I would ask them, like, would you have said this 5 years ago, 2 years ago, even? Many of you, almost all of you Muslims who are saying this now in Iran, just a few years ago, you couldn't even imagine listening to somebody criticize Islam. And then I'm like, what changed? What changed? Why do you saying like, oh, people should be allowed to respectfully criticize Islam? Because when we probably started this conversation with me, you Muslim, by saying like, Armin, why can't you be respectful like this person? Like, why? I like the people you actually start praising people anti-Islam. As a Muslim, I hear you praise Iranian critics of Islam by comparing them to some other Iranians that insult Islam. And I'm telling them this actually shows to me that it's those in people who insult Islam that normalized criticizing Islam in your eye. Because if we didn't have people insulting Islam, the most radical thing to do would be criticizing Islam. And because there's nothing more radical to compare it to, you would not be allowing it because you would see it as something crazy radical. It's only when we have something more radical than criticizing Islam that you became tolerant of criticizing Islam. Because compare, like, that person that only criticizes Islam and doesn't insult Islam, the fact that you're accepting him, he owes that to me or people like me who went out and insulted Islam, and now you're saying like, oh, let's go to that guy and listen to him because unlike Armin, he's actually very respectful and criticizes Islam respectfully. But he owes the fact that his what he's doing is now normal and acceptable to people like us because he's now being compared to people like us. And that's why I say, and I get him to admit that if they like the fact that they're thinking that, oh, it's not a big deal to criticize Islam, it's only because now there's so many Iranians that constantly insult Islam, and because that exists, criticizing Islam doesn't seem like a big deal. I try to get them to admit that, and I say, like, there's a saying in Persian, it goes like this: به مرگ بگیرین تا به تب راضی شن. خب یعنی this means that we go, like, imagine if, like, we go with death so that they can accept a fever. Like, I think what this means is that imagine if somebody comes and tells you that, oh, you're gonna die, and you're like, what the hell, I'm gonna die, and they're like, no, 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 don't worry, you only have a fever. But if I just told you you have a fever, you're gonna have a bad fever, you're gonna be like, oh no, I have a bad fever. But now if I tell you, don't worry, you have a bad fever, you're gonna be like, oh my god, thank God, I only have a bad fever, right? So that's a Persian saying, right? So tell them death so that they accept a fever, right? So I'm saying this is what we're doing, right? By going extreme, you tolerate something, you tolerate the criticism. So I have convinced some people, including Mehdi Nasir, with this line of argument, but this is more challenging. It's harder to convince Muslims that insulting Islam should be also acceptable. But even more difficult than that is convincing non-Muslim Iranians that insulting national symbols should be free. That is even more challenging, and that's a conversation that we could have another time. But that's a very interesting conversation. By the way, I just want to say where I stand on this, okay? Because there are people on both sides of me, right? So I'm a free speech maximalist. I'm not a free speech absolutist. I'm a free speech maximalist, right? So what I say is that when it comes to insulting, so a lot of Iranians think like, okay, we should be able, in the future of Iran, we should be able to insult Islam, but it should be illegal to insult Shahnameh or insult, I don't know, all the symbols of Iran, or, the flag, for example, or the king, or the Iran symbols of Iran. That should be illegal, right? And there are some other people who say, no, we should be going for free speech. What the hell? The Islamic Republic didn't have free speech. So now that the Islamic Republic is going, we should have free speech and all of that, right? I say I'm on the side of free speech, but as one vote, right? Because there are some other people who are also on the side of free speech, but they're more radical than me, as in that shouldn't even be up for a vote. Like, free speech should be one of the principles of Iran, and people shouldn't be able to to decide for us to ban any form of speech. I am somewhere in the middle of these two groups of people by saying that I would vote for maximum amount of free speech, but I think the Iranian people should decide the level of free speech that we have rather than saying that this is a principle that we don't get to choose. So I will vote for maximum amount of free speech, but Iranian people should be like as just one vote, not as this should be a principle. So we should have elections where people would decide what are like would they would pick their representatives who pick the laws, and the only four principles that we have is secularism, democracy, border integrity, and the equal individual rights before the laws. Those are our four principles, and the level of free speech should be decided based on who we vote for, both for writing the constitution and our parliament, where people come and vote for the level of free speech. I hope, but I also say that if there is any limitation of freedom of speech, which I would not vote for, I would vote for maximum level. But if other Iranians vote for us to have some limitations, I think those limitations should be based on the laws that are passed in the parliament, not the laws written in our constitution, so that we could more easily change it. So when we are electing the people who write the constitution, I think that with the limitation, if Iranian people vote for limiting free speech to some degree, that should not be written in the constitution. Vote for it in the parliament, so that if we're like, okay, we fucked up, that is actually does not work, we want more free speech, it will be easier to go back to having more free speech. So that's my position. Basically, I managed to make everyone angry. Both the free speech advocates are angry with me because they think that this should not be up to the people, this should not be voted on. Free speech is a basic fundamental human right, and everybody should have it to the max without elections. And the people who want to have some limitations, they're also, I can manage to make them angry as well, because my vote specifically would be for allowing any form of insult to anything